It was early September when the light outside began to change. Longer shadows, cooler evenings, and that bittersweet scent of summer's slow departure. The kind of weather that makes you nostalgic for things that never even happened. I felt it especially this year. Maybe because in a week, I'd be turning 42. Maybe because nothing in my life looked the way I once imagined it would. I'm a piano teacher at a local music school, a job I love for its simplicity and quiet magic. I spend most of my days surrounded by children who are too young to fake emotion. They play wrong notes, stumble over scales, and laugh nervously when I correct them. It keeps me grounded. But when the final chord of the day is struck and the last student leaves, the silence that follows feels heavier than it should. I come home to a clean house, a stocked fridge, and my son, Daniel. He's 22, in his final year of medical school, and interestingly, planning to become a gynecologist. I tease him about it sometimes. Why gynecology of all things? I once asked with a smirk. He simply said, because it's the most intimate kind of medicine. The kind where people need you to be kind, not just smart. That's Daniel. Thoughtful. Introspective. Quiet in a way that isn't shy, just deep. We live together, not out of necessity anymore, but out of something unspoken. Habit, perhaps. Or comfort. Maybe neither of us is quite ready to admit how hard it is to be truly alone. Daniel hasn't had a serious girlfriend in years. Not since high school, really. I haven't dated since the divorce. My ex-husband, his father, left when Daniel was in 10th grade, and since then, it's been just the two of us. We adjusted. We built something stronger than necessity. A quiet rhythm. A deep, unquestioned intimacy. Like two souls orbiting the same quiet world. And yet, as my birthday approached, I couldn't help but feel the echo of something missing. Not in a desperate way, but in that gentle, gnawing kind of way that lives in your chest and whispers, "Is this really it?" Daniel must have sensed it, because on a quiet Monday night, as I was folding laundry and sipping red wine in the kitchen, he came in holding a small envelope and an even smaller grin. "You have any plans next weekend?" he asked, trying to sound casual. I raised an eyebrow.
"Why?"
"Are you finally throwing me a surprise party?"
He laughed.
Not quite. He slid the envelope across the table. I opened it slowly, half expecting a funny card, or maybe tickets to a concert or something. But inside was a printed reservation. A camping trailer. A 2-day rental. Off-grid. Forest views. Just the two of us. I blinked. "I know it's random," he said quickly, "but I thought maybe you needed something new. A little adventure. You've never done anything like this." He wasn't wrong. I stared at the paper again, then at him. His eyes weren't teasing this time. They were earnest. Like a little boy still looking for approval, but a man giving me a gift not of luxury, but presence. "You want to go camping? With me?" I asked, half laughing. "Yeah," he shrugged. "I want us to have a weekend. Just you and me, like we used to. No distractions. No phones. Just peace." The wine in my glass felt warmer somehow. I reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "You're full of surprises, Daniel." He gave a small smile. "You have no idea." And suddenly, I felt something stir in me. Something I hadn't felt in a long time, not quite longing, but not just affection either. It was the kind of feeling that sits just under the skin, waiting to be named. Maybe I was imagining it. Or maybe, after all these years of being just mother and son, something in the air between us was changing. And before we go any further, I'd really love to know, where are you from? If you're listening to this on my channel right now, take a second and drop a comment telling me your country or city. It means the world to me to know who's on the other side of the story. Back to Daniel. That night, after he went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table a while longer, staring at the reservation. My fingers traced the paper's edge slowly, as if it could tell me something the words could not. Something was going to change that weekend. I could feel it in my bones, but I didn't yet know how much. The trailer was waiting for us at the edge of town, small but charming, a compact little sanctuary on wheels with pale wood walls and cozy beige cushions. It was Daniel's idea to leave at dawn, to catch the morning mist as it rolled over the hills. I hadn't been up that early in years, but I didn't complain. There was something comforting about his energy. He was so calm, so grounded. He did everything: packed the cooler, organized the blankets, checked the tire pressure, even brought my favorite chamomile tea without asking. He knew me better than anyone. That fact had always been a comfort. But now, it felt like something more. We drove in silence for a while, soft classical music playing through the speakers, the sun rising like a golden coin behind us. I looked over at him as he drove, his jawline sharper now, his hands strong on the wheel. For a second, I forgot he was my son.
No.
That's not quite right. I didn't forget. I just noticed him differently. He glanced over at me, catching my gaze, and smiled. "You okay?" I nodded quickly.
Yeah.
Just taking it all in. His voice was low and warm. "I like this. Just us." It hit me how rare this was, how long it had been since we'd truly been together, without the routines of home shaping our interactions. Here, in this little cocoon of wheels and mountains, we were free of roles, free of labels, just two souls in motion. We arrived at a forest clearing just before noon. Daniel parked with practiced ease, then helped me out of the trailer like I was royalty stepping off a carriage. "Your kingdom awaits," he said with a smirk, motioning toward the vast lake beyond the trees. The air was cool, the water still, and the sky, a soft canvas of blue brushed with wisps of cloud. He unpacked quickly, setting up 2 chairs by the lake and making us sandwiches. We ate quietly, side by side, our feet in the grass. At one point, I leaned my head on his shoulder without thinking. He didn't move. If anything, he leaned into me. "You always know when I need this," I murmured. "I know everything about you," he said simply. It should have been a casual response, but the way he said it, soft, certain, sent a tremble down my spine. Later, as the sun began to set, we lit a small fire. He sat across from me now, his eyes reflecting the flames' dance. "You're not like anyone else," he said quietly. I laughed gently. "I'm your mother, Daniel." He didn't smile. His gaze held mine. "And you're a woman. A beautiful one. I see that too." The fire crackled. My breath caught. There it was, that tension I hadn't been able to name. Now it stood between us, naked and unashamed. I didn't know what to say. I looked down, pretending to stir the embers with a stick. My heart was beating in places I'd forgotten it could. He stood suddenly, walked over to me, and knelt down beside my chair. "You deserve to feel appreciated," he said, reaching for my hand. "And not just as someone's mom. As you." I looked at our hands together, his large, warm fingers wrapped around mine, and a rush of emotion bloomed in my chest.
Gratefulness, yes.
But also something tender. Something forbidden. Something alive. His thumb traced slow circles on the back of my hand. I didn't pull away. "I don't want you to be alone anymore," he whispered. "I'm not alone," I whispered back, my voice shaky. "I have you." He nodded. "You do. And I want to be here. However you'll let me." The fire popped, throwing sparks into the air, and I realized something startling. I was glowing. Not from the flames, but from the way he looked at me. Like I was rare. Like I mattered. And as the night wrapped around us like a velvet shawl, I didn't feel the years between us, or the roles that defined us. I felt seen. I felt wanted. I felt more than a mother. And somewhere deep down, I began to wonder what the morning would bring. The night deepened around us, quiet and weighty, the sky folding into a blanket of stars. The fire outside had burned low, reduced to glowing embers, and the air carried a chill that curled its fingers around our shoulders. Daniel stood inside the trailer, arranging the pillows and blankets with a kind of reverence, as if we were preparing an altar, not just a bed. The soft golden flicker of 2 small candles cast long shadows on the wooden walls, making everything feel warmer, closer. "There," he said softly. "Home for the night." It was strange, watching him do something so tender, so domestic, like we were a couple on a quiet escape, not a mother and her son. And yet, the thought didn't disturb me. It made something inside me hum. He turned to me then, brushing his palms together as if dusting off the day. "I can take the little bench near the door," he said, nodding toward the cramped cushion that barely passed for a seat, let alone a bed. "If you want space." I tilted my head and gave him a slow smile. "You're really going to let me freeze alone in the middle of the forest?" His lips curled. "It's not that cold." I said, teasing. "It might be. You never know. And your mother's delicate." He chuckled, but didn't argue. He simply nodded once and began unzipping his hoodie, his shirt catching slightly on his shoulders as he pulled it over his head. I looked away quickly. Too quickly, but not before catching the way the candlelight traced the lines of his chest. When I turned back, he was lying down beside me, not too close, not too far. The space between us felt like a breath waiting to be exhaled. Silence. Only the wind rustling in the trees, the creak of the trailer settling on its wheels, the quiet rhythm of our breaths. Then, his voice low and hesitant. "Do you ever think," he began, "that maybe some people are just meant to be alone?" I blinked into the ceiling. "Why would you say that?" He shifted onto his side to face me. "Because I watch you. I see how strong you are, how you do everything on your own. But you look so tired sometimes." I turned my head. His face was close now, his features softened by the glow. "I'm not tired," I whispered. "No." I paused. "I'm hungry. For something I haven't felt in a long time." There it was. A truth that had been blooming inside me since we left home. He didn't respond right away. Just stared, eyes searching. "You mean love?" "Not just love," I said. "Presence. Intimacy. Being seen. Touched without expectation. Held for no reason." His breath caught. "I've always seen you," he said, barely above a whisper. "Always. Even when you didn't want anyone to." My chest ached. "I know. That's the problem." He reached for my hand, fingers brushing over my knuckles with reverence. His touch was featherlight, almost reverent. "You don't have to be strong all the time, you know." I swallowed, the lump in my throat thick and sudden. "And you don't have to carry the weight of being the good son." He smiled faintly. "What if I want to carry you instead?" His hand found mine again, and this time I let our fingers intertwine. We lay like that, in silence, our joined hands resting between us like a fragile secret. The air between us shimmered, charged with something ancient and nameless. "I don't know what this is," I said finally. He didn't let go. "Me neither. But it doesn't feel wrong." It didn't. The candles flickered, casting soft shapes on the wall, shapes that leaned together, whispered in silence, breathed the same breath. No one slept that night. We didn't need to move closer. We already had. In our words, in our confessions, in the quiet trust that passed between our eyes. And as the night deepened, so did our connection, threaded not just by blood, but by something far more elusive: recognition. The silence between us felt like silk, soft, delicate, clinging to the skin. I could hear the wind brushing gently against the trailer, the occasional creak of wood shifting beneath us, but otherwise, everything was still, as if the forest itself had paused to listen. And then I said it, quietly,
Casually.
but not without intention. "I'm cold." The words floated into the space between us like smoke, curling slowly upward. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. There was a moment's hesitation. Then I felt it, his warmth moving toward mine. The way his body shifted under the blanket, the soft hush of fabric against fabric. A heartbeat later, his arm slid gently around my shoulders, and he pulled me in. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was tender, like everything he did. His body was warm, furnace warm, and I felt his breath at my temple, steady and calm.
He didn't speak.
He didn't ask. He just held me. I let myself fall into the space he created, nestling against his chest. The soft scent of him, Clean laundry, with smoke, something deeper, filled my senses. And then, without even thinking, my hand moved. I reached up and gently combed my fingers through his hair.
Soft.
His hair had always been soft, even when he was a boy. But now it felt different, thicker, unrulier, like everything else about him that had changed while I was busy being his mother. He inhaled sharply, not startled, not afraid, just aware. I kept stroking. Slow, rhythmic, gentle. And I felt him relax. Or maybe melt. His arm tightened slightly around me, his fingers lightly tracing the top of my arm now, moving in absent-minded circles. I wasn't sure if he realized he was doing it, or if I even wanted him to stop.
I didn't.
I used to do this, I whispered, my fingers still threading through his hair. When you were little, when you were sick or scared or couldn't sleep. I remember, he murmured. It always made me feel safe. I smiled into the darkness. And now? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, now it makes me feel like you see me. Not as a kid. Not as your son. Just me. My throat tightened. Because that's exactly how I felt too.
Seen.
Not as someone's mother. Not as the responsible adult. But as a woman. A woman who hadn't been touched in a long time. Not truly. A woman who had long buried her own desires beneath duty and routine. A woman who, in this moment, felt alive in a way she hadn't dared to admit she missed. His hand moved again, slowly now, fingers brushing my arm as if memorizing the shape of me. Are you still cold? He asked, his voice a low, gentle murmur against my ear. I shook my head. Not anymore.
And it was true.
His warmth wasn't just in his body. It was in his words, his presence, his patience. We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. We just stayed there, wrapped in one another, hearts beating quietly beneath the same rhythm, breaths falling into sync like a song we'd always known. And as I lay there stroking his hair, feeling him melt into me, I realized something strange. The tension wasn't painful anymore. It was beautiful, like standing on the edge of something vast, and not being afraid to fall. His breathing had slowed,
Deepened.
I could feel it against my collarbone, steady and warm like a distant drum echoing through the night. The candles had burned lower now, the shadows on the trailer walls swaying gently like dancers caught in slow motion. My fingers still moved through his hair, slower now, as if memorizing every strand. We hadn't spoken in a long while, but the silence between us was thick with unspoken truths. Then he moved. Not quickly. Not with any hesitation, either. His hand, still resting lightly on my arm, tightened just enough for me to feel the shift in his energy. He turned slightly toward me, his nose brushing my temple. And then, softly, he kissed my cheek. It was a simple gesture, innocent even, but something in the way he did it, unrushed, sincere, reverent, ignited something beneath my skin. A flicker of warmth that swelled into a tide. I froze. Not in fear, not in guilt, but in awareness of what this meant, of what came next. His lips lingered there, just beside mine, and the room felt impossibly still. He started to pull back. That's when I turned to face him. My hand slid gently along his jaw, and before he could speak, before he could retreat, I kissed him. On the lips. Softly.
Slowly.
But without apology. His breath caught in his throat. I could feel it. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then I felt him melt into the moment, into me, our mouths gently exploring something neither of us had dared put into words. It wasn't rushed. There was no urgency. Just warmth. Honesty. Surrender. I pulled back slightly, just enough to see his eyes. They were wide. Glassy. Not with confusion, but with depth. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice trembling. I didn't mean to. I shook my head, silencing him with my fingers resting gently on his lips. You don't have to say anything. He searched my face, as if looking for signs that this was a dream. But I knew the truth. We were wide awake. And this connection had been growing between us for a long time. In every shared silence, every unspoken longing, every glance that lingered too long. He leaned in again, forehead resting lightly against mine. "I've never wanted anything more," he whispered. And neither had I. We lay there, lips barely apart, our breaths mingling. Our bodies hadn't moved, but everything else had. The world, the air, the meaning of touch. And I knew, whatever happened next, it wouldn't be a mistake. It would be ours.